Joining me today is Karl Sanders, mastermind behind Nuclar Blast's death metal giants, Nile. The band has a new album coming out called Should Not Be Unearthed. So, Karl, thanks for taking the time to talk with We Love Metal today.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's a pleasure to talk with you today.
Okay. I have to admit, I'm an old guy, not too old.
How old?
But I'm 47. So, I've been listening to metal for a long time.
Just a baby. I'm 52.
I've been a metal fan for 30 years, and I've always shied away from death metal until the last couple of years. But Nile is one of those groups that there's just something a little different about you guys when comparing to other death metal bands. Is that something that you've kind of focused on and strived for over the years, or it just sort of happened?
Well, I think it sort of happened, and then we recognized that it actually meant something, so it was cultivated.
Sure. And you've taken it, it seems like, to the next step on almost every album.
Well, they say you don't get, recognized for playing other people's music. So, we kind of took that edict to heart early on. We like doing things our own way. It's more rewarding in the end as well when you know that you wrote a song and, it's something you put your heart and soul into and people respond to it. That's very rewarding.
Yeah, the uniqueness of it, I guess, really helps you point to it and say, hey, this is what we do.
Exactly.
So, you've been at this Nile thing for a couple of decades now. Did you have any idea this project, this band would go on this long?
Absolutely not. When we first started, we didn't even think it would be successful. We were just doing it because we loved it. We all had day jobs, and playing music on the night and weekends was certainly sufficient for us. We just, wanted to play our music and, hopefully have some people hear it.
And it certainly developed into something more with, your 8th album coming out now.
Yeah.
Speaking about that album, What Should Not Be Unearthed, it's really strong from front to beginning, or from beginning to end. And, I always, probably like most fans, pick a favorite track or two, but, I found myself kind of gravitating to the closing song, To Walk Forth from Flames Unscathed. Can you talk about that song a little bit, musically, lyrically?
Well, it's, derived from some ancient Egyptian text containing some spells to protect oneself from being burnt up in the flames of the underworld. So you chant this spell and become impervious to fire. Kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, The Ninth Gate.
I think so, a long time ago.
There's this great scene at the end, or near the end, where this guy douses himself with gasoline, and he's chanting these spells that he believes will protect him from flames.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me a lot of that, so there was kind of like a lot of visual imagery already in my head when I was reading these texts. And then I think the next thing that came with that song is the really hair-raising melody. It's like a guitar harmony, but it's got these really spine-chilling bends that are huge, big, huge bends. Like they're like a whole perfect fifth bending up. And the song kind of grew out of that.
And became what it is. Yeah, I really dig those bends that you're talking about. And there's another song earlier on the album, maybe the second track, that you really kind of incorporate that sound to, if I remember right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. the technical playing, of course, is always there for you guys. But I noticed recently you said that this was focused more on the heaviness rather than the technical musical aspect of it. Any reason in particular for doing that?
Well, I think sometimes, as a band, you're pushing yourself to get faster, harder, louder, more technical than, your last album or the next band or whatever. I think those pursuits are extraneous from the music itself and sometimes serve to just make it difficult for the listener.
Uh-huh.
If you give the listener, I think, too many technical things, I think it overloads their brain, and sooner or later, none of it seems to make an impact in the song. So with this, this album, we took an approach where we would scale that back and really just focus on, writing the song, to be heavy, memorable, and have that middle spirit.
Right. Yeah. Well, you did. It's working. You mentioned the Egyptian Middle Eastern influences. How did that become an interest for you?
Well, it was always kind of a casual interest, even before Nile. But when I found myself in a band called Nile and, started writing songs for this band, actually doing the research, for the lyrics, sort of expanded and whetted my appetite, to learn more about it. And it kind of grew out of that.
Okay. So was there anything like when you were a kid that kind of piqued your interest and made you gravitate towards that, or?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to watch movies with my dad. He was a fan of big epic flicks like Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments, Land of the Pharaohs, Sodom and Gomorrah, the ancient Boris Karloff movies. Yeah, awesome stuff.
So that was your intro, I guess.
That was my intro for a young, impressionable mind.
Well, that's the time to get them, right? When they're young. So, kind of another question along the young and impressionable line. How about your introduction to music in general and heavy metal in particular?
Well, I started playing guitar when I was 9.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I was like a teenager and started listening to like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Blue Oyster Cult, I kind of knew what I fucking wanted to do with my life. Just play guitar.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like you knew from a young age and have really put your energy into that over the years.
Yeah, it was what I put my energy into as a young man. The career didn't materialize till I was well into my 30s. Music's one of those things that's not necessarily a guarantee. Just because you work hard and you're good at it does not necessarily mean you're going to succeed. There are other factors at work.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there are tons of bands out there that are super talented and way more talented than what you're going to hear, say, on the radio or in a lot of places. But yeah, I think you're right. Those breaks, those times that you get noticed are really important to that process. Hey, outside of music, if you have time for outside of music, what do you enjoy to do? You're down there in the Southeast, a lot of outside stuff, or?
I do martial arts.
Okay.
I practice an art called Senai-Jitsu.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it's a derivative of Ishinryu karate, but there's a lot of other stuff involved. There's some half-circle jiu-jitsu, there's boxing, there's some wrestling elements, some kung fu elements, and it's described as situational street combat. There's it's a lot of mixed martial arts kinds of things, but it's very stripped down and streamlined to be very effective. We don't do kata or, pre-organized forms. We do live technical drills and live sparring and lots of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a no BS kind of martial art. And it's really brutal. It's a lot of heavy contact. That's another thing I've grown to. I did 5 years of Taekwondo, and, the contact was so minimal that you never really got an actual taste of, actually employing the techniques in a practical, usable fashion. I mean,
right.
In my entire life, I've never been able to use, in a fight, jump 360 spinning hook kick. Never.
Never. It's not so.
So, even though I can do that stuff, and like every once in a while I'll whip it out in the Senai Jutsu dojo, and I usually get an ass beating for it. Cause it's impractical in an actual, combat situation. It's, it's just gonna get you hurt.
Yeah, as you're flying through the air and somebody, takes you down, I imagine.
Yeah.
All right.
It's quite embarrassing too. To do something you think is going to be badass, and your sensei goes, "What the fuck are you doing?"
It looked cool, but ineffective.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, all right. Very cool. Back to the music side of things. You guys are getting ready to go on tour in Europe. I always like to ask this question, and it's difficult a lot of times to answer it, but what's one of your most memorable live music experiences?
Well, there's so many. Usually when people ask me that, the one that jumps out of my mind is the year we played Wacken. I think it was 03 or 04. And we were right in front of Slayer. So the audience was like, at its peak, because everybody was, congregating because it was nearly time to see Slayer.
Right.
So it was like an incredible lucky spot to have. And I remember we were in the middle of Sarcophagus, and it got to that part of the song where they throw on the house lights and light up the audience. And holy smokes, that was like at that point in my life, that was the biggest crowd I'd ever fucking played to in my life. Which was somewhere between 40 and 50,000 people.
Right. I
don't have an exact figure. That's a lot of motherfucking metal spirit going on right there. Yeah, I'll never forget that. Lights came up in Sarcophagus, and holy shit.
That must have been a great feeling, though.
It was a great feeling. It's that thing that you work for your whole life, looking forward to, going, maybe one day, maybe one day, maybe one day.
And that was the day. All right.
That was the day.
All right, cool. So, you're going on tour with Suffocation in Europe. What do you like to do in Europe besides actually playing in front of people?
Get a shower, sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two things are not overrated. Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from. Do you guys take time to go see any of the local stuff, culture, food, anything like that?
Well, that occurs as time allows. When you're traveling, often you see the awesome tourist stuff from the window of the tour bus as you drive by.
Right.
I remember I was in Paris 5 times before I had the chance to go see the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, wow.
So it's not every day. I mean, some days you might have time if the drive was short the night before and you're actually in the city or wherever, maybe, then you can do some stuff. But Often it's a big exercise in frustration. You're in an awesome, cool place, but you're stuck at the venue doing sound check, or the bus is broke down on the side of the road, so you're late.
Right.
Or, rock and roll is not all it's cracked up to be.
I have to remember that one. All right. So once the European tour's over, what's the outlook for a North American jaunt for you guys?
Well, I've actually seen the dates. We're touring the States in January and February of 2016.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I believe there is a Chicago show.
Oh, I'm sure. Not too many tours miss this place, so. All right. We'll be looking out for that. All right. Hey, Karl, one last question from me. Our website is called We Love Metal. Why do you love metal?
I've always loved metal. I never asked myself why. I just do. And that's fucking good enough for me.
That's good enough. Absolutely.
That's good enough for me. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's metal's done well by you, so we appreciate your contributions to the form and the kind of unique things that Nile does, and looking forward to the album being released and the tours coming up. So, any last words to the fans out there?
We're really excited to bring you What Should Not Be Unearthed, and can't wait to play it for you guys live on tour.
All right. Thanks a lot for the time.
Thank you, Bill. It was a pleasure talking with you.
All right.